Today I want to celebrate and give thanks for an ancient impulse within our human family. An authentically inclusive spirituality that directs us unconditionally towards love, towards kindness, respect, a willingness to care and protect rather than judge, a love that refuses to condemn, a love that refuses all forms of harm, a love that speaks up against injustice, but does so without more violence. A love that is divinely given and is strong and resilient and vibrant enough to heal the divisiveness within us, as well as the divisiveness between us. Let us grow in wholeness is the true meaning of holiness. This means not exiling any part of ourselves, and not exiling or abandoning or shaming any group or any individuals within our human family, but instead acknowledging that you depend on me and I depend on you. That what we all want is comfort, hope, joy, safety, peace, well-being. That we want meaning in our lives and the chance to keep other people safe. We are not independent beings. We are entirely interdependent. Life itself is my finest teacher, and life has taught me that we are also entirely interspiritual. That is our blessing, and it is the blessing of all existence. Biologically, we are social beings. Spiritually, our interdependence goes even deeper. If we go to war with one another, we go to war with ourselves. If we harm or shame others, we harm and shame ourselves. If we love one another, we are free also to love ourselves. The impulse towards wholeness is the driving energy of spiritual life. It is the soul healing the entire being. It is what makes absolute sense of our social justice and our peace efforts, of our universal need to forgive and to be forgiven, our universal need for dignity and compassion. These instincts towards healing and wholeness and holiness arise from and also reflect our true nature, which is the nature of love. What a challenge this is to our feelings of separateness, or our perceptions of unworthiness, or our moments of inflation. It challenges any idea that we may have of our specialness or separateness or of our abandonment. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, "Know me as the eternal seed in all of existence, as the wisdom of the wise, as the splendor of the splendid, as the strength of the strong, All states of being begin in me. They are in me, not I in them. I am with all beings always. I abandon no one. However great your sorrows, you are never separated from me. Each of us shares the same soul strengths, whatever our background, whatever our intentions, whatever motivates us, we share the same soul strengths. And it is our incredible privilege to be free, to learn what it means to express those strengths and to allow them to change the familiar self that we call I. There's a Zen koan that speaks of the face each of us has before we are born, that we cannot escape but can only rediscover and discover and rediscover again. The true and original face of love. In other traditions, we call this face soul. We might call it spirit, we might call it Buddha nature. No matter what we call it, it is our experiencing of it that brings us home. That brings us home to the heart, to our sacred remembering that we are always and inevitably on the path of love. There is no other path. We may forget it. We may forget ourselves. We may forget who we are and what we are capable of being. But the path does not forget us, because love cannot forget us. George Fox put it so tenderly, the founding Quaker. Walk lightly on this earth, answering through your conduct that of God in everyone. How should we do this? By acting with love, by acting with consideration, by acting with forgiveness, by doing as little harm as we possibly can, and when we recognize that we have done harm, learning from it, reconciling ourselves with those we have harmed, and moving forward with love. More than 25 years ago, I began to realize that I was teaching and living from an explicitly interfaith perspective. In part because instinctively I knew that the shadow of religion and the shadow of religious belief is divisiveness and exclusion. Come to me, all you who suffer and are burdened. Come sit at my table, though you have no money, come. That felt to me like the calling for which I had readied myself through a long and complex life. That life itself had readied me for that through very difficult, painful sometimes, situations, as well as through some extraordinarily privileged adventures. My years as a Quaker, as a member of the Religious Society of Friends, had done much to heal that exclusiveness and divisiveness that sits so hard in most of our memories. But I wanted to be even more explicit in my writing and in my teaching, and as it eventually turned out to be, in my ministry. I wanted to stand and say, through the very context of my ministry, that we are one human family. that we are glorious in our diversity, that we are fascinating in our differences, that some of our differences are odious to me and some of our differences are truly inspiring, but we are one human family. And that we must, for our own survival, lean together, learn from one another, and do so with the deepest possible respect and grace. I've also been aware from my childhood that actions matter far more than ideology. In fact, every child knows this. Ask a child about an adult in their life, and they will comment not on that person's theological brilliance and not on their high status qualifications, but on whether that person is fair, whether that person is kind, whether that person is patient and good-humoured, whether that person is tolerant, whether that person can be gentle, and whether that person can be consistent and clear and, above all, loving and keep them safe. All of you who have attended any of our services, or perhaps all of our services, over these last 11 years, know that the wisest, truest teachings we have brought to you, and we have only brought to you the wisest, truest teachings, emphasize conduct above everything. They emphasize loving conduct above everything. And they point universally to a fully inclusive path of love. Words can be healing actions too, of course. And we have tried in these services to bring you many, many examples of words as healing actions. So it is with unbounded thanksgiving in my heart that I thank you for all that I have learned in this place as your minister. I have learned in this place and elsewhere all that I have tried to bring you as your minister, and I have learned from you, from your reception, from your taking up, from your expanding, from your following the impulses in your own hearts to live more lovingly and inclusively and peacefully. I want to share with you one reading that I believe expresses so exquisitely that we come to know the path of love ever more deeply, not through thinking about it, through living it. I want you to hear these words as though they were written for you this very morning, as though the dew was still on the page, as though it was only you that was thought of when Paul wrote his letter to the people of Corinth. My prayer is that these words and all the words that you have experienced, all the music you have experienced, all the silences that you have experienced, all the friendship that you have experienced in and from and around these services will continue to awaken your mind, will continue to refresh your heart, and will continue to allow you to bring hope and strength and love to all those touched by your life. So here are Paul's words to the people of Corinth, to the people here today in our beautiful, beautiful Pitt Street Uniting Church, and to any of you who may hear these words at some other time when we are all lost to time. If I speak in the tongues of humankind and of angels, but have not love, I am no more than a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith enough to move mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. If I give away everything that I have, and if I deliver my body up to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. Love does not envy or boast. Love is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. Love is not irritable or resentful. Love does not rejoice at others' wrongdoing. Love does not judge, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, and love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the perfection of fullness comes, then what is part only will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I grew into adulthood, I gave up childish ways. For now, we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now, faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is love. With my hands at my heart, I bow first of all to the beloved. I bow to all my teachers. I bow to each and every one of you. Blessed be.